Have you ever met someone so gentle? Their presence unsettled you, not because they were loud or cruel or demanding, but because they saw straight through your mask and said nothing. Libra doesn't confront you with fire, they confront you with grace. And that is what makes them dangerous. They are the mirror you can't escape, the one that reflects not who you pretend to be, but who you really are when no one is watching. Most people walk away from Libra, not because they're weak, but because they reveal the truth you're not ready to live with. Stay until the end, and you'll understand the 15 reasons why. Libra is the mirror people avoid most. And maybe, just maybe, you'll stop avoiding your own. There are few things more disarming than being seen without being attacked. And that is Libra's power, the silent kind. The kind that doesn't knock you down with fire or flood, but unravels you with reflection. When you stand before Libra, you are not judged. You are simply revealed. They do not hold swords, they hold mirrors. But that mirror, it does not flatter, it remembers. Libra is born under the air element, abstract, perceptive, and ever-flowing, but ruled by Venus, the planet of love, art, and value. What happens when air meets beauty? You don't get seduction, you get discernment. Libra does not merely crave aesthetics, they demand harmony. And harmony, contrary to the sweet word it has become, is a crucible, a forge, a moral echo that rings louder than any voice. Most people think Libra wants peace. What they don't understand is this: Libra wants truth. And truth, when it is inconvenient, feels like betrayal. There is a reason people avoid Libras without even realizing it. Not because they are unpleasant, quite the opposite. Libra is magnetic. Their presence is soothing, polished, gracious. But it is in that very grace that the discomfort begins. Libra listens. They don't interrupt, they wait. And in that silence, you begin to hear your own contradictions. You say you want justice, but avoid accountability. You say you value love, but keep score. You say you hate drama, but you feed off chaos. Libra doesn't have to call it out. They simply hold space. And in that space, your performance falls apart. They are the mirror at the end of the world, the place in yourself you thought you buried. The broken vows, the double standards, the subtle betrayals, the things you justified, the masks you wear even in front of your friends. Libra sees it all, and rather than shaming you, they smile. A soft, knowing smile that says, "I understand why you became this way, but you can't stay here forever." This is why the mirror is terrifying, because it is not cruel, it is kind. And when someone is kind to the parts of you that are not, it creates a spiritual dissonance, a reckoning, and you have a choice: grow or retreat, face the fracture, or call them fake and flee. Most people flee, but Libra doesn't chase. They don't scream. They simply adjust their presence to match your willingness to evolve. They're not here to fix you, they're here to balance the field. And if you disturb the balance, they will become the storm. A storm of calm confrontation, quiet boundaries, and the kind of absence that feels louder than 1,000 voices. Because Libra isn't the mirror that flatters you, they're the mirror that frees you. To understand Libra, you must understand the paradox of their ruler Venus. She is the goddess of love, yes, but also of law, of art, but also of symmetry. Venus does not create beauty for admiration alone. She creates it as a language of order. And Libra, as her airborne child, translates that beauty into principle. We mistake beauty for decoration. Libra never does. For them, beauty is a code. The way someone enters a room, the pauses between their words, the tone beneath their yes or no. It all reveals something about alignment. The outer must reflect the inner. And when it doesn't, Libra feels it, like static in the soul. So they become masters at smoothing the edges of the world. Not to manipulate, but to reveal what is possible when everyone rises to their higher self. But here is the great dilemma. The world doesn't want beauty that confronts it. It wants beauty that entertains, that distracts, that hides the rot beneath a glossy smile. Libra refuses, because their beauty is not skin deep, it is ethical. They don't just care how things look, They care if the look is true, and when it isn't, their silence sharpens, their diplomacy turns surgical, their charm becomes a scalpel that cuts through lies with velvet gloves. And this, more than anything, is why people pull away from them. Because Libra challenges the foundation of how we perform goodness. They watch you speak of justice while dismissing other voices. They hear you preach loyalty while betraying yourself. They hear your "I'm fine" and see the resentment swelling behind your ribs. Libra knows, but they don't accuse. That's not their way. Instead, they place the contradiction in your hand gently and ask, does this reflect who you are or just who you wish to be? That question, delivered without force, is more devastating than any judgment. Because Libra doesn't want to catch you in a lie. They want to liberate you from the need to lie in the first place. This is the spiritual technology of their soul, to show us where our beauty is borrowed, rehearsed, conditional, and guide us back to a kind of elegance that is earned through inner coherence, through decisions that cost comfort but restore wholeness. That is the real Venus in Libra, not seductive flirtation, but the fierce gentleness of someone who will not allow you to remain at war with yourself. And here's what most people miss. Libra does this not only for others, but for themselves. They struggle too. They too wrestle with the temptation to appease, to avoid conflict, to stay silent when their heart screams. But when they finally align their outer grace with inner truth, they become dangerously clear. Their presence becomes a standard, not a performance, a mirror, not a mask. And in that moment, you either step into integrity or you disappear from their life without knowing why. Everyone talks about Libra's scales as if they simply measure preferences, like choosing between coffee or tea, this or that, love or loneliness. But that image is a misunderstanding, a flattening of something sacred. Libra's scales are not about personal choices. They are cosmic instruments. They weigh the invisible forces between people, power, intention, consequence, truth, and nothing escapes their measurement. Balance is not comfort. It is accountability. To live in balance, one must first admit what is tipping the scales. Libra does this not through domination, but observation. They walk into a room and sense imbalance, like a subtle ringing in the ears, the tension behind a smile, the unequal exchange of effort, the unspoken emotional debt someone is forcing others to pay. And once they feel it, they can't unsee it. They try at first. They try to accommodate, to shift their own weight, to even the scales. They give, they withhold, they reflect, they mediate. But when the distortion grows too loud, when peace becomes performance, when silence becomes self-betrayal, the inner court of Libra opens, and suddenly a verdict is forming, a soul-level judgment, not of punishment, but of proportion. Libra is not here to punish. They are here to reveal what's been hidden under the rug of niceness. Because beneath their grace lies a truth few recognize. Libra doesn't avoid conflict. They contain it. Like a vessel, they absorb the unspoken tensions, the messy gray zones others run from. But there is a threshold, a point where holding the peace becomes a lie. And when that moment comes, Libra does not explode. They close the book. Without yelling, without theatrics, they simply stop bending, and you'll feel it. Their tone shifts. Their smile tightens. The doors of compromise shut with a finality that is stunning in its silence. That's when you realize Libra has already done the math. They've counted every emotional cost, every unfair transaction, every moment where they offered balance and received chaos. And they have reached their limit. Because here is the part no one teaches: justice costs. To stand for fairness in a world of ego and control is not soft. It is radical. It demands the kind of self-discipline that few possess. And Libra carries this burden with elegance. But make no mistake, it is a burden. They have learned that not everyone wants fairness. Some want advantage. Some want obedience, dressed as love. And Libra refuses both. So they choose solitude over distortion, distance over appeasement. They choose to become their own scale, carefully curating what stays in their life and what quietly gets removed. Not to hurt, but to restore the sacred balance they were born to protect. Because when Libra walks away, it's never random. It's a verdict. Not all masks are harsh. Some wear smiles that soothe words, that flatter mannerisms, that shimmer like polished silver. Libra's shadow is not obvious like Aries' rage or Scorpio vengeance. No, Libra's darkness wears perfume. It blends in at dinner tables. It passes as civility. But beneath it, a storm of suppressed truths, self-erasure, and moral exhaustion. You see, for all their talk of fairness, Libra often forgets one crucial part of the equation themselves. In their quest for harmony, Libra can silence their needs, smile when they should speak, agree when their soul is screaming no. Because conflict for them is not just uncomfortable, it feels like spiritual rupture. And so they become chameleons, mirror-like, reflecting the desires, moods, and insecurities of others just to keep the peace intact. But peace kept at the expense of truth is not peace at all. It is a quiet betrayal. And eventually, Libra feels it. The ache of being invisible in their own life. The fatigue of emotional labor no one asked for, but everyone expects. The rage that simmers behind their eyes as they nod politely through situations that violate their sense of justice, not just for others but for themselves. This is the great test of Libra's soul, not to create balance for others, but to live in balance with themselves. And until they do, their beauty becomes a mask, their diplomacy a performance, their agreements complicit. This is when the shadow awakens, the chronic indecision that isn't thoughtfulness, but fear of consequences. The charming flirtation that becomes manipulation. The need to be liked, morphing into a shapelessness that forgets who they are. And yet, this shadow is not evil. It's a signal, a cry from within, saying you are not here to please. You are here to align. Because when Libra learns to say no, not just out loud, but from the core of their being, something remarkable happens. Their grace sharpens, their presence deepens, and the mirror they once held for others turns inward. They begin to examine the deals they've made with the world. Which ones were sacred? Which ones were survival? And they start making new ones, not to keep everyone comfortable, but to keep their soul clean. This is the alchemy of Libra's shadow. They move from people-pleasing to truth-speaking, from indecisiveness to discernment, from agreement to alignment. And those who only loved their softness begin to fall away. Because when Libra chooses integrity over approval, their reflection becomes piercing. No more apologies, no more half-truths, only the quiet, graceful rebellion of someone who has chosen to become their own center. And that is a mirror most can't bear to face. To understand the full gravity of Libra, look not to the Zodiac wheel, but to history's hall of mirrors, where those who wore the robes of balance stood in rooms filled with imbalance and chose again and again to remain centered, not passive, centered. Think of Mahatma Gandhi, whose nonviolence was not weakness, but willpower forged in fire. He didn't scream for justice, he became it. Quiet, immovable, deliberate. He held the scales against empires, showing the world that power does not always roar. Sometimes it refuses to move. That is Libra, calm as a still lake and just as deep. Or Euripides, the Athenian playwright, whose tragedies stripped illusions from society's mask. Through the lens of his stories, he revealed how easily morality fractures under pressure, how the pursuit of order often hides the rod of injustice. A Libran soul doesn't just seek to balance what is, they question why it ever became imbalanced at all. Look to John Lennon, singing of imagined peace while wrestling his own chaos. Or Oscar Wilde, whose wit exposed the hypocrisies of Victorian society with the precision of a surgeon, masked in humor, draped in style, but always cutting to the heart of truth. They did not just reflect culture, they interrogated it with beauty. These are not soft people, these are warriors of refinement, philosophers of peace, artists of reckoning. Because Libra in its highest form is a force of aesthetic revolution. Their artistry is not for applause. It is a weapon of choice, used to disarm the world's harshness, not ignore it. They paint harmony across a canvas of chaos. They speak logic into emotional wildfire. They stand in a room full of yelling and choose to ask the hardest question: what is everyone refusing to see? And when no one answers, they answer for themselves. Libra is the priestess of the middle path, not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. It takes divine strength to hold the tension between extremes, to say I see both sides and mean it, to give voice to nuance in a world addicted to extremes. And that's why they are often misunderstood, seen as undecided, as too neutral. But the wise know the middle is not indecision. It is the forge of mastery. To live as a Libra is to know that justice is rarely loud and fairness is never perfect, that sometimes peace comes only after clarity has stripped away illusion, entitlement, and ego. The Libra archetype is the architect of civilization, the diplomat, the judge, the artist who dares to critique beauty from within its own temple. And this too is why people avoid them, because standing before someone who lives by principle instead of performance is disorienting. Because Libra doesn't beg to be understood, they embody understanding. And once you witness that, you are never the same. To look into Libra's eyes is to look into yourself, not the curated self, not the clever self you parade around social media, but the quiet self, the one that stirs in the middle of the night when no one is watching. The self that knows what you've compromised, what you've tolerated, what you've become to survive. Libra doesn't awaken this part of you with critique. They awaken it with stillness, with the way they listen without reacting, with the way their presence, elegant and exact, makes every distortion around it stand out. You can't lie in their light, not because they'll punish you, but because they simply won't play pretend. And that's what makes them the most avoided mirror in the Zodiac. Because where other signs may call you out, Libra invites you inward. And the truth is, most people aren't ready to meet themselves in full. They come to Libra expecting validation, a soft place, a flattering gaze, and at first they get it. But slowly, the performance peels away. Not because Libra strips it, but because you start to feel it slip on your own. You hear your own inconsistencies echo back. You feel the weight of fairness when it's asked of you, not just offered to you. And suddenly you're not so sure you want to be seen anymore. Because when Libra loves you, they don't just accept you, they illuminate you. They shine a light on what could be refined, realigned, returned to truth. They believe in your potential so deeply, it becomes a silent challenge. And that challenge unnerves those who are not yet ready to rise. So they leave, not with drama, but with stories too cold, too picky, too vague. But really they left because Libra saw what they were avoiding and held it too gracefully to be dismissed. But those who stay, they transform. They learn that clarity is not cruelty, that grace is not weakness, that fairness, true fairness, begins within. They learn that love without truth is manipulation, that charm without ethics is hollow, that beauty without justice is just a mask for fear. Because in Libra's world, the soul is the final judge, and they are not here to win debates. They are here to restore rightness, not through punishment, but through poise, not through dominance, but through discernment. They remind us that it is not enough to look harmonious. You must be harmonious with your values, with your word, with your choices. That is the gift of Libra. That is the mirror. And yes, that is why people avoid it. Because most mirrors reflect only appearances. Libra reflects accountability. And once you've seen yourself through their eyes, the choice becomes clear: retreat into illusion or rise into alignment. So, if a Libra has stood quietly in your life, reflecting more than they reveal, holding space, without taking center stage, ask yourself, what have they been showing you that you were not ready to see? Because when Libra appears, it's never random. They are not sent to flatter your ego. They are sent to awaken your soul. And that is why once you face their mirror and stay, you'll never settle for anything less than truth and grace again. If this message stirred something in you, if you've ever seen yourself reflected in Libra's eyes, or felt the quiet ache of their absence, leave a comment below. Share what resonated. And if you're ready to walk the path of alignment, not appearance, subscribe, because this is just the beginning.